Welcome to the Ultimate Bloons TD 6 strategy series, where I'm going to be showing you strategies for every single tower from the Dart Monkey to the Beast Handler and every single path in between. This will show you how to diversify your setup and get better, along with seeing some stats, tips and tricks, and all of the strategies for every single one of the towers. And although that the series is geared more towards Chimps mode, this will also show you a lot of tips and tricks that apply to the standard game and will allow you to win with a new style. So it's time to cover the last path of Desperados, which will be the Desert Phantom, the Avenger, and the Enforcer. These towers are pretty cool. They're definitely a lot picky than the other Desperados, so let's get right into it. The Enforcer really isn't that strong in my opinion and doesn't really fit in anywhere. The Avenger, on the other hand, can do some pretty good general damage in the mid game to Bloons and Moabs, just a little inconsistent. And then the Desert Phantom has some really awesome late game cleanup. It's a pretty cool tower to watch just absolutely destroy everything when you give it some buffs. So here are the stats for all of the monkeys. Nothing too special on the tier 3 in my opinion, but with the bottom cross path you're going to be getting the Nomad, so it's important to note that he's going to be close to the Bloons and far away from towers, which is very weird. Here is the Enforcer. This guy starts to do a little bit more. You'll notice he'll be able to affect the blimps a lot better, so all the Moabs will also be able to get some knockback too. And then the Desert Phantom does a lot of damage in the late game. Both the pistol attack and then also the shrapnel attack has a lot of damage. The kind of shrapnel explosion thing is really the big thing that you're looking for. As you can see, just the guy shooting there, when the shrapnel goes off, it really just does so much damage. So for the cross path, you're just going to be getting the middle path, so 0, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's pretty simple, as the top cross path won't mix with the bottom, and because it's the bottom path, we don't want to get that, so you just get the middle path and that will be working out very well. And then for the placement, as I said before, it's going to want to be away from towers and close to the Bloons. So this can be a little bit annoying at times to work around, but you do want that 3 stack on the shotgun. It doesn't really matter for the pistol, but having that will work out very well. And there's a lot of maps that this will work on, but it's alright if you maybe miss a stack or two. For the buffs, we're going to want to be giving it Berserker Brew and Primary Training. This will give the shotgun good range, but you can skip out on the Primary Training if that's going to mean you lose a stack. But in a lot of cases, if you play it out right, you can get all of these buffs. Then on top of that, with the Desert Phantom, you're going to want to grab the Overclock, and this will make it pretty powerful. Although it still can be inconsistent at times on some shorter maps and a little bit weak to DDTs. But with all those buffs, it can work out pretty well. Churchill is a hero that I think works really well with the Desert Phantom in combination, or you could pair it with a hero that does better against the higher order Bloons, like the ZOMGs, as this tower is more oriented towards cleanup, or Gwendolyn might be an interesting choice to help out with the DDT aspect, because that is what this tower is weak against, really DDTs and stuff like ZOMG. So its pros is that it is a very powerful cleanup and it has good help in the mid game, but it's kind of inconsistent. It has a very picky placement, and because of that, it's annoying to build around. On top of that, it's weak to DDTs and then ZOMGs and higher. But for the ceramics, Moabs, and BFBs, they're just absolutely destroyed. So our objectives are going to be for the Desert Phantom late game and also checking out the Avenger mid game and seeing how that will do. The first example here, I'm going to do it on Quiet Street. This is kind of a typical map that you'll be looking at for space. This doesn't have a lot of space to work with, nor does it have a little. And because of the way that this tower works, it wants to be away from other towers in range of the shotgun. Again, the pistol range doesn't really matter. You're gonna not have that getting buffed either way, even though it does a pretty good amount of damage. We're just gonna care about the shotgun. If we wanted to get the pistol buff too, then it's gonna have to be completely away from every single tower, and having your towers be so spread out and so incoherent with each other is just really bad, so you don't want to do that. It's not going to be great in the early game. As I said, the Enforcer really isn't the greatest thing, especially if the map is not like logs or something. So I'm just going to be grabbing a tower to help out in the early game here. I'm going to be deciding to go for an Engineer. It's really powerful, and a 203 Engineer will work wonders. I'm going to probably make a video on it at some point, so that is just a really cool tower that you might want to check out. You'll just see the power of it over here. You can have the Desperado take out camo, and then I'm just going to need something lead, so something for lead, I mean. So I'm going to throw down an alk and just a 100 sniper to make sure that I get all those leads. Sometimes just relying on one AMD won't really get it, but that alk goes to a berserker boost. That's going to buff Quincy up. And as you can notice, I placed Quincy kind of far back. That's because you really need to plan out ahead of time in order to make sure that your placements work, because you do want the triple nomad stack, which will give 45% more attack speed, which is a big deal. If you can't really get this to work, I'd say that the Desert Phantom really just is not worth using. I've done some tests like in videos, and it just performed very mediocre without that extra 45% more damage. It's going to be 30%, it's 15% per stack, 30% if you miss one, which is all right. That might happen here or there. Like in this case, I really just can't find a way to get the village that would be out of the range just because the map isn't big enough. So I'm going to be going all right without one stack. I can get the Enforcer to help out again if you have a really strong early chimp starter. So if you maybe get like a double shot or Bloon Jitsu with an alk buff, or in this case I have a 203 NG, which is enough, you can go into the Enforcer. As I said, it's not the greatest thing, but if you have that to help, you can do that, and then go into the Avenger 2. The Avenger will do some pretty good damage against everything, but it won't be quite enough to save up, so something small to add on top of that would really help out. So I got my alk buff on it, I got the village. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have the triple stack, but 2 stacks will work just fine. If you're getting 1 or 0 stacks, it might be the best to kind of stay away. So that's really something that you need to be aware of. I'm just going to get a O2 for sniper right there. That's going to be pretty effective, and I'll upgrade the alk to stim. So that's going to be a good mid game. It's very cheap. I'm not really doing anything too expensive. It's not really going to help in the late game, but because it's so cheap, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. I'm not really spending a lot in order to pull this off. So I'm just going to be able to get the Desert Phantom early and still have enough cash to get all of what I want at the end. I've talked a lot about how it can be very beneficial to use mid-game towers that will help in the late game. This does make a very strong strategy, but if you're on some beginner maps, it's not beginner maps, like beginner, intermediate, or like easier advanced maps, not going for this route because it could be more difficult is perfectly fine. You should have more than enough money to work with in your strategy if the map isn't too stressful. So doing something like this isn't really bad if you're not really so tight on cash, but for harder advanced maps and expert maps, this might be a good thing that would help you out. That's just a general tip, not really super related to the strategy, but because the Avenger is pretty strong in the mid game, I can get away with a fairly cheap save up that won't really drain me too much, like that just 1024 sniper. So we're gonna get that, we get the Desert Phantom, and now we are chilling. So this is really interesting. If you look at the stats, the explosion is plasma or fire damage type. They're the same damage type. The shrapnel is sharp, and the projectile itself is shatter. So basically, the Desert Phantom will damage black balloons, which is an interesting thing. The explosion does that, but parts of the projectile will not deal damage to the lead aspect, as they're sharp and shatter type damage. So you do not need MIB for the explosion to pop the DDTs. Instead, you can get away with like a glue storm, and it can help out the cleanup, just destroy everything. And you can pair the glue storm with, as I'm using here, Quincy to deal a lot of damage to like the ZOMGs, or you could have another tower kind of do that. Kind of really cool synergy that will work out very well, and as you can see, it will play out very well. As opposed to that, you could use a number of other heroes. I said before I really like Churchill. I'm going to be using Churchill in the next example, but that does well with taking out the DDTs with the level 3 ability, and then the level 10 ability, of course, will take out these UMGs very well. I just get a first strike for round 100 because I will be needing that. I don't really get any like super lucky explosions there on 98, but I was still able to take it out just fine with a glue storm. And this is maybe the worst first strike timing you've ever seen. So we basically use all these abilities. Glue Storm with Quincy, of course, is going to be doing a lot of damage because this is a pretty good synergy. And then I completely mess up the first strike, and I end up first striking ZMG. But the Desert Phantom has good cleanup, so I still take it out. It's maybe not the best first strike timing, but it's still a win. Now let's move on to the second example, where I'm just going to be doing the same little thing, and I will be moving along with Churchill. Now, the early game and mid game is actually pretty similar. I hate to be a little bit of a bum, but I got into here and realized there really isn't much I can do for the mid game, just because this map is more constrained on space, which is a little bit annoying. This kind of just shows how it's possible to work around small space maps, but it is a very annoying thing to do, which is something I'll talk about a little bit. But when it comes to the mid game, for using the Avenger in mid game, you can use it. Actually, it will do pretty good damage to balloons and Moabs. Not fully consistent, as other desperados have issues with that, but the one thing about it is that it's just really annoying to use, because you're going to be taking a lot of space and you have to plan out your entire late game around like this mid game, where this desperado is going to take a lot of space and need some stacks. So really, is it worth using a lot of the time? The answer is definitely not, I'd say, unless you really want to use it. It technically has the power, but you have to go through a lot just to think about how you're going to be able to get that extra 45% attack speed, because that's a lot of attack speed. Imagine just having a tower, and if you don't make sure that no towers around it, it just becomes 45% worse. That's like a pretty big deal. So it can be used as a mid game. It does have the damage to do it, but it's really annoying having to have your late game set up all around it. Now, this is another synergy that I'm going to be looking at with the Desert Phantom that I really liked. It is a carpet of spikes with the Desert Phantom. Works really well. The carpet of spikes counters all of the Desert Phantom's weaknesses, and to round it all off, I'm going to be using Churchill 2, which is really cool. Now, what I was going to do here was I was going to get a Spiked Mines, which helps out very well for the mid game. It ties this all together very well. Unfortunately, I did not leave enough space between Churchill. If I shifted everything over, it would have worked, but Spiked Mines is a really good option, and I tried to see if I could fit an ace in there. No, not really, so I ended up just going for that 024 sniper again, which is fine. But if you could get a Spiked Mines, it's a strategy that will work out really well. The Desert Phantom with Spiked Mines to save up, and then getting Carpet of Spikes after is pretty nice, and get a pretty easy Chimps win. But if you've had a lot of experience, or maybe watched a lot of these videos, you know that you really can work around things. Just looking at the weaknesses of the main damage of the tower that you're going to be using for your chimp strategy, you could find a lot of combinations that would work out really well. So thinking something that will take out DDTs, something that will take out like ZUMGs. You don't really have to have something that has super good single target damage, because you can just use a first strike for 100. And as this is like a fairly medium priced tier 5 tower, you definitely could get 2 more cheap ones, or another medium price tier 5 tower, and still have a lot for support. So you really could come up with some good options that would be able to take care of those weaknesses. In this case, I'm going for a little bit more of an expensive tier 5 tower afterwards, but it will take care of both of those weaknesses, leaving nothing behind, so it will work out very well. For example, you could have something like super glue for taking out the DDTs, and then for taking out the ZUMGs, you could bring in something like the, not the Desert Phantom, that's the tower that we're using already, the Blazing Sun, the other Desperado, the Blazing Sun, and then having Bounty Hunter with that too. So Blazing Sun, Bounty Hunter, that could be another pretty good combination. You could use that with Gwen if you want, so you could actually damage the DDTs, because the super glue would just stop it. So like Gwen, super glue, Blazing Sun, Desert Phantom, put them all together, you'll get a pretty cool thing. So that's just, for example, coming up off the top of my head, trying to just fill in the weaknesses. That's really the way to make some good strategies. So that is one thing you can do. For this run though, we're going pretty good. The sniper kind of is in a not good spot, but that's what we had to resort to. But I was able to get the Desert Phantom just fine. You can see I used the spikes for the round 40. This is a pretty interesting move because I needed something to take out round 40, and instead of buying something like a Moab Mauler, which would be a waste of cash, I ended up just going for a 030 spike, which was able to do the job, which is pretty cool. The Moab Shredder spikes really is not that good though. Like, as alone, unless it's specifically round 100, it is just not a good tower. It will get eaten up by a bunch of random balloons, and it doesn't really do a crazy lot to Moabs. And if you want to preserve the spikes at the back, they're going to be random balloons that are leaking, not Moabs. So yeah, it's just not the greatest of towers, so I don't really do anything with it until it's time to save up for the Carpet of Spikes. From there, I'm going to be getting that. And as you can notice, I have the one alk, it's a stem all the way pushed over to the side, so it can affect both the spikes and the Desert Phantom. This is something just to kind of deal with the space more. So that's pretty neat, something you can do. You could have a stem and have it affect two towers that need their alk buff. So I'm able to get that Carpet of Spikes, and now I'm just chilling. Churchill's in the back doing a lot of cleanup, helping that. And if the Desert Phantom ever doesn't get an explosion off at time and something's leaking, I will have Churchill to be able to help out with that, which can happen on some shorter maps. It's a little bit of a concern, but it's usually pretty darn good. And with all these buffs that it's gotten, it's a pretty effective tower. I think it's pretty good, but without the nomad stacks, of course, at least 2 stacks, I would say it falls more into the mediocre range. I'm going to get that overclock up there that will be able to destroy round 98 just fine. The 99 comes, I have the Carpet of Spikes, of course, so that's not an issue. And then I just overclock the Carpet of Spikes for round 100 to be able to make sure that bad goes down and everything disappears. So that's the Desert Phantom. Basically, it's a pretty awesome tower, but it's not fun to build around. As the Desperado videos are finished up, they're really just plagued with placements and dilemmas from their cross paths, which is a pretty big design flaw. In my opinion, only really short to the whole way that beast handlers are used. It kind of makes other people not want to use it, because if you have a tower that really only works on a few specific maps, like the Golden Justice for example, chances are you're never really going to use it in Chimps mode. But let me know what you think about this.
Thanks for watching. If you want to help out the channel, you can check out these new videos, like and subscribe for more content, support the channel by becoming a member, and joining the Discord to chat with the community. Bye!